Hey, welcome back to Frames Team. It's been a while. Today we'll discuss two very interesting cameras, the Nikon Z50 Mark II, Nikon Z52, and the Sony ZVE10 II. Both are pretty comparable to each other when it comes to some of the features, most of the features, and the price at which they both come in. Very interesting cameras. But before I get into the details of these two cameras and just show you some test clips and all that, help me reach 8,000 subscribers. So hit the subscribe button and like the video if you like it. So let's get into the conversation. I'm going to begin the video by talking about a few very interesting facts about the Sony ZVE10. Five very interesting facts. First of all, it's got the mic here is very interesting. It's got three smart capsules within this area, and this can actually capture audio selectively from the front or from the back, or you can choose to sort of take in the audio from all around you. You can do that as well. So this is very handy because for run gun vlogging, and you don't have to kind of edit and figure things out. You don't have a specialized mic on it. You can just get directional audio right from this camera, which is very cool. It's got a full-sized battery, meaning it's got the same battery that you see in Sony full-frame cameras, which is pretty rare because if you look at Canon, if you look at Nikon, they don't give you the full-frame batteries in their APS-C bodies, but Sony clearly does. And it is one of the most affordable cameras in their lineup. It's about $1,000, this camera, and comes with a full-frame battery, which is fantastic. And despite coming with a full frame battery, the weight is only 377 grams less than 400 grams with the battery, with the card. That's fascinating. I mean, 100 or 150 grams more, and you're talking a proper full-sized full frame camera. So this is very cool because it's such a light and handy camera that you have in the Sony ZVE10 II. Now, one more cool thing is that you can actually import LUTs to have a real-time look when you're shooting with S-Log3, because at times it's not easy to actually get the framing, understand the colors when you're using log profiles. So this, to be able to use real-time LUTs, import LUTs for previewing, it's really good. It's really helpful, and I think this is a feature that you typically see in much more expensive cameras, but Sony is giving you that. That's fantastic. Now, this sensor is actually 26 megapixels sensor that you see in the FX30, that you've seen in the Sony a6700 as well. So, this is the same sensor that you see in those much more expensive cameras. In fact, the FX30 is almost 2,000 US dollars. Let's talk about the Nikon Z52, another very interesting camera. I'm going to talk about the super bright EVF. The EVF is fantastic, so good, so beautiful, gorgeous to look through. Like if you're talking bright sunlight, like very bright days outside, use a bright lens, you can use it because it's got a beautiful viewfinder and it's gorgeous to just experience the world through this viewfinder. I love it. I loved using it. Okay, and at the same time, it's got Nikon's high-end processor. The Sony does not actually have its latest high-end processor that you see in the more expensive cameras, but the Nikon Z52 actually has the same processing unit that you've seen in the Nikon Z8, Z6 III, and the Z9, which is very cool. Now, another big strength that the Nikon has is it's the amount of buttons it's got all around the body. It's got buttons at the front, it's got buttons on top, it's got buttons behind the camera, it's got buttons everywhere, and there are 11 custom buttons, which makes the camera such an easy camera to use and handle. You almost don't have to go inside the menu to find stuff. And arguably, because I use Nikon a bit more than Sony, for me the Nikon menu is a bit more, I would say I'm a bit more familiar, so the Nikon menu system is already a bit easier for me. But even then, on top of that, I have all these buttons, so it just becomes such a joy for me to use this camera. It's very easy. The Z52 comes with a 21 megapixel sensor, which you've seen in the DSLR D500, you've seen in the older ZFC, the Z50 first version, and then also the Z30. So I've seen this sensor around, but I feel that looking at the files, I feel as if this This sensor is more even more optimized. It's just more pleasant to use. The files are better this time around than before, because I think with the help of the XP7 processor, the sensor is more optimized. 26 megapixel sensor is almost like 15-20% more megapixels compared to a 21 megapixel sensor. But I think 21 megapixels is enough for most situations. You just have a little less croppability. The Z52 is very well built. It's got a very chunky, beautiful grip, really easy to hold on to. For example, it's got a built-in flash unit here. All right, so it's got a quite a full-featured camera with very good weather sealing, beautiful high quality rubber, sturdy feeling metal all around the body. And this body is a bit heavier. Okay, it's at 550 grams with the battery and the card, which is, I would say, almost to 170-75 grams heavier than the Sony ZVE10. It's starting to look like as if the Sony has an edge over the Nikon Z52. But let's get deeper into this comparison and see the situation changes. The Sony doesn't come with a viewfinder. Nothing. You've got nothing there. No viewfinder. So all you've got to do to compose to see the scene is if you have to rely on this screen. I have come to realize that the viewfinder is not just good for photography, it's great for videography as well. There are situations when you want the viewfinder because the sun is too bright and the viewfinder is going to bail you out. You don't have a viewfinder on the ZVE10 too. You don't have a shutter. You don't have a mechanical shutter. You're dependent on only the electronic shutter, which means that, I mean, you can't do much. If there is camera movement and you're trying to shoot, you're going to see bent lines because there is rolling shutter in this sensor. It's not a lot, but it is there, and it's going to get visible if you like pan. So I mean, not having a mechanical shutter is a problem. This camera doesn't even have a front dial. It doesn't have enough buttons all over the body. So I think you don't have enough controls over this camera body, which it's not to my liking at all. I would have liked to have seen some more, okay? And I don't see I'm missing a dial here. The Sony also doesn't have a built-in flash unit, which is fine. But then at the same time, this is about $100 more expensive than the Nikon Z52. Now, suddenly after all this use, it kind of the balance changes, right? It tilts towards in favor of Nikon a bit more. The next segment will be recorded by these two cameras because now we'll talk about autofocus, dynamic range, color even. We'll talk about those things. So let's shift to these two cameras and tell me how this camera is actually capturing this scene, how it is sort of, how what's the performance? Is there any difference in autofocus performance when it comes to a setup like this? Let's go for that look. So clearly the Sony ZVE10 II, this one is a more video focused camera. It's a light video focused camera. Great for if you want to take it for travel, if you like, it's an in-home studio setup like this where you want to record your videos, social media videos. This is great for even for wedding videography and product filmography even. The Sony ZVE10 II has one good thing about it. It's got 4K 60 with only a 1.1x crop. The Nikon Z52 actually has a 1.5 times crop on top of it being an APS-C camera. So the ZV10 4K 60 only 1.1x crop. The Z52 1.5x crop, which really works in favor of the Sony. But apart from that, the rest of the features, they're very pretty neck to neck when it comes to video. None of them have IBIS, internal IBIS, so you have only the digital stabilization, which are like almost neck to neck in terms of how they behave. But I would say that the Sony is slightly ahead. It doesn't it has less of that micro jitter in comparison to the Nikon. But then, that's really splitting hair a bit too much. I think they're very similar to each other when it comes to stabilization. And when you move to the electronic stabilization, you're losing much of the sides, you're dropping in further. The Nikon log files seem to be doing a bit better than the Sony's S-Log3 files at ISO 3200 and 6400. In terms of noise, I wasn't sure about it, but I checked and rechecked. The Sony seems to be doing a slightly worse job, but they're pretty close to each other. I would prefer the Nikon a bit more. Overexpose these two cameras by two stops or higher, you start seeing that the Nikon is not consistent, because the pictures, the colors fade out when you overexpose it by three stops. But if you look at the images coming out of the Sony, actually overexpose it by one stop, two stop, three stops, you don't see any difference in the colors. Overall, it's just very, very well maintained, very consistent color output from the Sony, which is surprising. Sony has done a very good job there. But then these are digital cameras, and you should not overexpose them anyway. You should, if anything, underexpose them by about a half a stop or stop, just to be able to manage the files much better in post. Now, let me know if you see any difference in the autofocus of these two cameras right now. I'll try to put them side by side. Let me know if you see any difference in the autofocus of these two cameras. Does it pick it up? Does this one pick it up? So if we just do this and come forward, I find these tests funny, but I just did it for you. But I have run autofocus tests. I have asked someone to run towards the camera, stop, turn around, run back, go out of the frame and come in the frame. And I've seen that both these cameras do such a fantastic job. It's like I couldn't find any difference, that both of them are very, very good when it comes to autofocus, especially subject detect, eye detect autofocus. And I thought, okay, let's see how do these cameras work when it comes to touch autofocus. Oh my god, I started playing with both these cameras. They're so good, so consistent. Mind you, I shot especially these touch tracking videos with the 35 1.8s from both the systems, the 35 1.8s from Nikon and 35 1.8 from Sony, and they were rapid and they were accurate. I loved playing this game. These two cameras are so good when it comes to autofocus. At the same time, I kind of put them through a difficult pen test, where just you hold a very tiny little slender pen in front of the lens and see whether it's able to pick it up. And to my surprise, I didn't see any difference in the final output when I saw it on my laptop. When I was using it, I felt as if the Sony was a bit more responsive. It was just a feeling. I'm not sure. I couldn't see the evidence of, when I looked at the files, they both looked the same, but it felt as if the Sony was a bit better. But then for the other tests, both performed equally well. So yeah. But in the end, when it comes to value for money and usability, I mean, you have to look at, when you look at these two cameras and look at which one wins, which one should you go for, I think the conversation is a bit more complex than just summing up the different specs, right? And we'll talk about that, because we'll now talk about usability and user experience, and just share my opinion and experience about using these two cameras. So let's talk about that. About user experience, look, the Z52 is built like a professional camera. It's got a very beautiful and deep grip. The overall build quality feels far better built. Beautiful high quality rubber here, very well built surfaces, good quality paint. Everything feels so nice and well built. Everything feels so premium on the Nikon Z52. It definitely feels like a professional camera, and because of the nice grip, you can practically use much larger lenses on the Nikon Z52. But not only that, you've also got a brilliant viewfinder which has got 1,000 nits of brightness when you see through it. So you are able to shoot very well, not only video but also not only photos but also videos in bright daylights, because often the sun can overpower the brightness of the screen when you're shooting videos, but not the viewfinder, not the EVF. And I have shot big lenses with this camera. It's got a very, very high performing bird autofocus system, and it was a pleasure to shoot this camera with the 180 to 600 paired with this camera. I loved using it. I absolutely loved using it. At 600 mil, it's equivalent to 900 millimeters at f6.3. A lot of people would look at this camera and look at it as a successor of the D500, which is a legendary wildlife and birding camera. But not only that, there are other things. It's got a proper mechanical shutter with, two curtains, proper mechanical shutter. So when it comes to photography, flash shooting, studio work, this camera is fantastic. The Nikon Z52 is very, very useful in those situations. Absolutely no problem at all. It can shoot up to 11 frames per second very rapidly, very accurately. The autofocus is really, really good. And it's got quite a deep buffer. And, we can just shoot. You don't have to worry about just, getting stuck with the card asking you to wait while it writes information. While the camera writes the information on the card. You can seriously do professional work with the Z52. I'm not sure you can do all of it with the Sony ZVE10 II. I think the Sony ZVE10 II is made for one type of consumer who's like focusing solely on video, and that person is never going to think of actually shooting photos. Or maybe he has something else. He owns a specialized photo camera and he just wants a support camera when it comes to video. That's the person that the ZVE10 II is aimed at. The 4K 60 with minimal crop of 1.1x crop is very good. The overall autofocus, the color quality for the first time, the fact that it's got lens correction, the lens breathing correction, all those things, the little things that the Sony ecosystem needs, because quite a few Sony lenses actually have focus breathing. This is a very well packaged camera. But it feels like this is not a all-rounder entry-level camera. If you're someone who's going to thinking of buying a new camera and you're looking at getting an overall package, like well-rounded, all-rounder, good in most things out of camera, the Nikon Z52 is that camera for you, because it can do most things very, very well. It can do 4K 60, but with a crop. So you have to just manage the focal length. The Sony is specialized in more focus, so it sort of sacrifices a few things to become very, very good at video. So I would say that overall, if you're a beginner, if you're looking for a backup camera can do everything for you, a camera that ensures that you have something to fall back on, go and get the Nikon Z52. If you are someone who doesn't know what you want to do, but you want to get into filmmaking, photography, but you don't have like choices made for you, so you are still exploring, should go for the Nikon Z52 because it's a very well-rounded camera. And in this price segment, under $1,000 APS-C camera price segment, the Nikon Z52 is just easily the best camera out there, which is and very, very well balanced. There's nothing that actually beats the well-roundedness of the Nikon Z52. So I think that's where I'm going to leave it. Let me know what you think. Let me know what your opinions are on these two cameras. Have you tried any of these cameras? Are you looking at the Canon R10, or are you looking at one of these, Fuji cameras? For example, I think the XM5, which I'm going to review very, very soon. So look forward to that. I'm also going to review the Fuji X-T50, but those are stories for another day. Right now, I am just falling in love with the Z52. The more and more I use it, I absolutely love the experience of using the Sony ZVE10 II, but it just is too one-sided for my liking. So there you have it. Let me know what you think. Subscribe to the channel. I'm going to see you soon with another one very soon.